Hello and welcome back to another We Ourselves video. Today I'm going to talk about the idea of good intentions. Now, this topic came to me after a couple of recent incidents brought the topic to the forefront of my thoughts. The first incident was a recent panel that I participated on at a nearby convention, in which we were talking about a major studio blockbuster which was an adaptation of a famous fantasy game property. And during the discussion, the topic came up about the representation of the black characters in the movie. Now, the non-people of color members of the panel did not expect the black creators on the panel, including me, to bring up the topic of negative stereotypes because they thought that the diversity of the actors and actresses was all really good and really progressive. It came as a shock to them when I and the other black creator on the panel pointed out the persistent stereotypes that the black characters fell into within the film. That was the first incident over the past week or so. The second came by way of a comment that I received on my video about Dune Part 1. In that video, entitled Diversifying Classic Sci-Fi, I was critical of the character casting choices that the filmmakers decided to do for this classic sci-fi property. The idea of good intentions on the part of the director Denis Villeneuve and the casting director and their desire to have more women and more people of color was mentioned. Shouldn't they get credit for their good intentions to include people of color? And my answer in both of these cases, and in most other cases where people want to point to the good intentions of the studio or filmmakers, is no. Good intentions aren't enough. I know that may sound a little harsh. After all, when somebody goes out of their way with good intentions to give us representation through the movies and TV shows, why isn't that enough? Why can't they be applauded or patted on the back for their efforts to make sure that we are represented? My answer to those types of questions will hopefully explain to you why, in this day and time, good intentions aren't enough. In the case of Dune Part 1, yes, the film director and everybody had good intentions, I believe, when they decided to go with a diverse cast, even though the people chosen did not look like any of the descriptions within the written work. And to be honest, neither did the Dune 1984 film adaptation get it right either. In that case, the entire cast was white. So yes, I recognize that the current filmmakers made an effort to diversify the cast. The question is, were their good intentions enough? Or should their good intentions and efforts outweigh any unintended negative visuals or stereotypes? And I answer that no, they aren't good enough for the same reason that I keep bringing up in all the videos that I do about subpar representation. If the decisions, the good intentions, are formulated in an environment that has been and largely still does not include members of the target recipient group, it's my belief that the result will be detrimental to the targeted group. The reason for this is simple. In these non-inclusive environments, people make decisions that will not inconvenience them or make them uncomfortable. And too often that means falling back on old tropes and stereotypes, things that were culturally conditioned into all of us and require effort to destroy. And because there was not enough diversity in the decision-making process, the good intentions decided upon within that non-inclusive environment were designed to fit old tropes as well as not inconvenience the people making the decisions. And even though the original Dune book contains the white savior syndrome problem, as I pointed out in my Dune video, because of the only other theatrical release or adaptation of that book, the 1984 film had an all-white cast, the white savior syndrome was not as blatant as it is now. I won't go into the material here. You can check out that video. The link is in the description. Getting back to my experience on the recent panel discussion at a sci-fi convention, we were talking about the recent Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie that was released in March of this year. And of course, the topic of the discussion was whether or not it was a faithful adaptation of the well-known fantasy tabletop role-playing game. The members of the panel, who were not people of color, were strictly focused on whether the film was a faithful adaptation of the fantasy game. And given the inclusion of a diverse cast, they weren't thinking about the persistence of negative stereotypes for the black characters. My fellow black creator was the first one to mention a persistent stereotype that particularly bothered him, and that was the stereotype of the magical Negro. For those who aren't familiar with this stereotype, here's a description from Wikipedia. The magical Negro is a trope in American cinema, television, and literature. In the cinema of the United States, the magical Negro is a supporting stock character who comes to the aid of white protagonists in a film. Magical Negro characters, who often possess special insight or mystical powers, have long been a tradition in American fiction. And furthermore, it goes on to say, the character is typically, but not always, in some way outwardly or inwardly disabled, either by discrimination, disability, or social constraint. One film critic stated that the trope takes a subject that some folks find unpleasant, even troubling to ponder, and turns it into a source of gentle reassurance. Of course, the magical Negro character from the Dungeons & Dragons movie is Zinc, the Paladin, played by actor Regé-Jean Page. He's not the magical Negro because he can cast spells, but because he fits the stereotype. He shows up to rescue Chris Pine's character and then leaves the movie despite being a fan favorite. Cast as a black actor, the filmmakers unknowingly created a modern magical Negro character. Zinc is literally a source of gentle reassurance to the group. Now, what surprised some in the audience at the panel discussion and members on the panel itself was that they did not expect that topic to be part of this conversation, and that's my point. What they took as good intentions and a positive outcome on the part of a diverse cast, they never stopped to consider that the movie also perpetuated negative stereotypes. The stereotype I explained to the panel was what I considered an updated yet tamer form of the infamous black buck stereotype. This is where the black male is interested with hooking up with the white female, who for her part is focused on the mission and not dating. It's also made clear that unlike with the traditional black buck, who would resort to violence, the current black males are easily controlled, ignored, or put off by the white female characters. Good intentions that are decided upon and made within a space that's not inclusive often do not consider the actual feelings, outlooks, and lived experiences of the target demographic to whom you're trying to give your good intentions. And that's the case with this movie. Good intentions are never enough, particularly if the space in which these decisions are made are not inclusive in and of themselves. Given that, it's no wonder that good intentions never truly serve the stated target audience. And that is where the basic problem lies. That's all I got for now. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you the next time.